It's crazy to say this because in Filmographers' time, it's only been 1 week since Steven Soderbergh retired with his final film, Behind the Candelabra. In real time, he actually wasn't retired for all that much longer, especially if you count his work on The Knick, which he directed all 20 episodes of that series. He also executive produced another TV show, Red Oaks, and I didn't know until recently, he was the DP on Magic Mike XXL. He didn't direct it, but he was the DP and he edited it. So he did all these things, in his time off.
Yeah, and it's even crazier that when you consider the fact that he announced his retirement in 2009 before finally hanging it up in 2013. So that's 4 years from announcement to retirement. And now he's back with Logan Lucky in 2017, 4 years from Candelabra's release.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Let's put it this way. If Soderbergh was retired for the 4 years he spent away from movies, then Terrence Malick was legally dead for the 20-year gap between 1978's Days of Heaven and his return film, 1998's The Thin Red Line.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people actually did think he was dead.
Well, fortunately, for all of us film lovers, fortunately, he was not dead, and neither was Soderbergh. He was just taking, in comparison, a little siesta. But now he's back, and he's got some interesting tricks up his sleeve for his return film, the already mentioned Logan Lucky. I'm Michael Moreci.
And I'm Keir Graff. Welcome to the Filmographers podcast, where we study an entire director's career, one film at a time. In our first season, we're tackling Steven Soderbergh A to Z, from Sex, Lies, and Videotape all the way to who knows where. It's anyone's guess whether this season will ever actually end.
It's not looking like it, but that's fine. We're having a blast, so I'm happy to keep following Soderbergh wherever he goes. And all of you watching, listening, thank you for joining us. And if you are watching on YouTube right now, be sure to click that like button, subscribe. And if you are listening on a podcast, be sure to also subscribe on whatever platform you are listening to us on. Give us a positive review as well. Nothing helps us, get in good favor with the algorithm than, likes, subscribes, and good reviews. Now, before we dive into Logan Lucky and its trailblazing and, quite frankly, kind of ballsy plan for release, for theatrical release, Keir, hit us with your one-sentence summary of the film.
When injured ex-football star Jimmy Logan is unjustly fired from his job driving a forklift under the Charlotte Motor Speedway, he invokes the code word cauliflower to activate his brother Clyde and sister Melly in a plan to rob the racetrack during what is, due to a stroke of either bad or good luck, the busiest weekend of the year.
Jimmy, I'm just gonna say it. I gotta let you go.
You were just fired.
I was let go for liability reasons involving insurance.
The one-armed bartender.
You need to show a little respect. Charlotte Motor Speedway. I know how they move the money.
The only guy who knows anything about blowing up real bank vaults is Joe Bang.
I am incarcerated.
Yeah, we got a plan to get you out.
The Coca-Cola 600 is the biggest race of the year.
We need a computer whiz.
I know everything there is to know about computers, okay? All the Twitters, I know them.
Welcome to the Coca-Cola 600.
Now, how many yards away is the vault?
20 yards. I don't know, maybe 30.
Is it 20 or is it 30? We are dealing with science here.
They're gonna know what we want them to know.
My life of crime is over.
That is my massively stupid.
It's been handled.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
That looks like it hurt.
I want everything on Jimmy Logan.
I'm about to get naked. So no bacon. I said no bacon.
So why did Steven Soderbergh unretire? I think we've pretty thoroughly covered that his retirement wasn't much of a retirement at all. He was gone for a total of 4 years, and he squeezed in a whole lot in that quote unquote time away. The question is then, what made him come back? Well, it seems like Soderbergh has less of an answer for coming back and more of an explanation for why he left in the first place. In July of this year, while presenting Kafka, again, as Mr. Neff, if you're familiar with that, we've talked about before, he has a new cut of his second film, Kafka, that he's retitled Mr. Neff, that he's presented at various festivals. Sounds fascinating. We're all eagerly waiting some sort of release that's beyond just a festival run. But anyway, he was presenting this cut of Mr. Neff at an international film festival, and he said this, and I'm taking this from coverage presented by Letterboxd to make sure we're attributing this properly. But Soderbergh said, in quote, "I stupidly publicly retired 11 years ago," he says with a heavy sigh. "I would say, I don't know what I was thinking, but I did know what I was thinking. What happened is that I confused the job with issues within the business that I was unhappy with. I announced that Behind the Candelabra was going to be my last film and said I was stopping and was going to pursue something I'd been doing on the side, which was painting. I said I was going to get serious about that and spend however many years I needed to spend to get better at that for 2 months," which I love. Now, while Soderbergh is both a heck of a nice guy and a consummate pro, everyone who works with him loves him and his output is unparalleled, and he's an industry darling. He's had his problems with the business side of things. He loves making movies. He loves the process of it, but that love seems to end when the movie's made and getting it seen by audiences begins.
Yeah, I don't think any other director has worked as hard as Soderbergh has to circumvent this traditional Hollywood release strategy. Now, that strategy has been broken to pieces in recent years due to the rise of streaming services and the theatrical disruption caused by COVID. But in Soderbergh's heyday, in the time we're talking about, if you wanted to make a movie with stars and a budget, the studio-backed theatrical model ruled. But even with stars and a budget, there was, of course, still a chance your movie wouldn't get seen. Now, Soderbergh, as we have discussed often this season, was trying to find a better way. He partnered with Mark Cuban to release Bubble on DVD, selling the movie in actual movie theater lobbies, when a Soderbergh film probably should have been playing exclusively on the big screen. He partnered with IFC for a bold digital release of Che, light years before on demand or streaming were even a thing. And he even partnered with HBO to release Behind the Candelabra on TV, giving up any possible theatrical traction in the US. There was a theatrical release in England, of course. Bottom line, Soderbergh is a restless artist and a restless businessman. He's not content following the status quo.
Yeah, and this is where you enter Logan Lucky. It's Soderbergh's attempt to more or less have his cake and eat it too, meaning he wants the creative control of a movie like Bubble or The Girlfriend Experience, but he also wants a real Hollywood budget and Hollywood stars. Speaking to the New York Times, Soderbergh said this, and since it's the New York Times, Mr. Soderbergh said this. "After years of shooting my mouth off about absolute creative control, we're going to attempt to do it. The question is this: can you do what studios normally do from a wide distribution standpoint, only with a lot fewer resources, spending on marketing in particular, and with a much better economic structure for the people who actually made the film," end quote.
It's almost like he's orchestrating the perfect heist. And with any heist, you need a man on the inside. It just so happens the man Soderbergh was looking for was himself.
Logan Lucky is basically about a group of people who have no money, no opportunities, no access to any kind of technology, who try to turn their lives around by pulling off a ridiculous heist in the middle of a NASCAR race.
This kind of stuff don't happen to normal folk.
It's a testament to how much I like the script that I realized that I was now going to have to walk back from some pretty definitive statements that I'd made. But I was happy to do it because I thought the material was really fun, and it was the kind of movie I like to make. It's the kind of movie I like to watch.
Logan Lucky had a really interesting release strategy. Interesting, and like so many Soderbergh endeavors, ahead of its time. Now, I don't think we need to go too deep into detail on this because Logan Lucky's production and release strategy can get pretty cumbersome pretty fast. So I'll give more of a bird's eye view of how this thing all worked out.
Pretend we're in the very top row at the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yes, and minus the fumes, so we have that. So, okay, here we go. Here's how Logan Lucky worked. And this is really cool. I think this is really interesting what he was trying to do. So Soderbergh raised $29 million to make the movie, which, according to him, wasn't all that difficult. He's Steven Soderbergh. He can do these things. Like he did with Che, he pre-sold the overseas distribution rights, which is pretty standard procedure for smaller films. Like when you're making a smaller movie, you're trying to find all this revenue, and that's one of them is pre-selling your movie to any territory that you can, Germany, Brazil, etc. So that gave him the money he needed to get production rolling, especially with the movie stars working for, and which has happened before, especially with Channing Tatum, back-end profit participation. He also sold off a chunk of the movie's non-theatrical rights to Amazon, which is why they're named a producer on the movie. All in all, things are looking good. Now, speaking from my own experience, I can tell you that when it comes to making a self-financed movie, there's two hurdles that are always going to stand in your way. The first one is money. That's a no-brainer, slam dunk. Money is why you can't make movies, because they're so damn expensive. But as noted, Soderbergh has this part covered because he's Soderbergh, and there's plenty of people who want to get in financial bed with him because he's made so many hits, and there's possibility that maybe you invest in it's the next Bubble, or maybe you invest in it's the next Ocean's 11. You don't know. But the potential is there. He's a pedigree. Everyone loves him. So that's easy for him. So he is good in terms of raising the capital to start shooting, especially when he go place and say, hey, I got this movie. And by the way, Channing Tatum and Adam Driver are in it. That's a nice leg up. Now, the second thing, that's the second hurdle, is where things get complicated for a movie like Logan Lucky. Because here's the thing. If you're a small outfit and you're making a movie for, say, $1 million or less, you could recoup that money through foreign sales and domestic streaming agreements. But if your budget is something like, in the case of Logan Lucky, more in the ballpark of $30 million, you've got a little bit of a problem on your hands, because now you need to get your movie into movie theaters. It's the only way you're going to recoup that type of money. $30 million, like you said, with marketing costs and everything, you're going to need to make like 80 million, 90 million, whatever, to make that money back going theatrical, and you have to go theatrical. So the problem, though, is that getting your movie into movie theaters is not easy.
Yeah, as I understand it, the way the theatrical system works, you basically have to already be in the pocket of a major studio to get a wide release, or you have to rent their services, which means in the end, you're going to get financially fleeced. And that's the exact thing Soderbergh was trying to avoid.
The system isn't great. If you're not with the major studios, your chances of getting a national wide release are all but non-existent. It just doesn't happen. It's why, oh boy. Oh, here we go, Keir. It's why, love these movies or hate these movies, the Terrifier films, the fine cinema that is the Terrifier films, are so important, and they're cause for hope, because we're talking about a tiny movie from a non-existent company. I think it's called like Cineplex or Cineflex, or wherever the studio behind it is tiny, and getting a movie like that to a wide release and finding success. And hey, these movies, good for them, have been widely successful. And to do that without the part of the studio machine is kind of a miracle.
I mean, Art the Clown is a force to be reckoned with.
Yes. Yeah. They should go the Jason Takes Manhattan route and make like a meta Terrifier 4 where it's Art the Clown Takes Hollywood, I think. Yeah.
This is getting to be a lot of Terrifier talk, Mike.
What have I done?
Anyway, Logan Lucky had the money, but no path to wide distribution, which was essential given the movie's budget. So Soderbergh had to get creative. He was steadfast on wanting to maintain creative control, not just over the movie, but over how it was marketed. Again, this goes back to how studios fleece creatives. They spend an ungodly amount on marketing, pushing directors and stars further and further away from their money. And this all goes into the dark arts of Hollywood accounting. How much do they actually spend on marketing? How much, if that is real? A lot of questions, that will never be answered. But point is, Soderbergh wasn't having that. He had done it. He was not doing it again. So playing ball with the studios was simply out of the question. Now enter Dan Feldman, a former Warner Brother exec, not current. He's former, so he's cool. He had a consulting firm, and he hatched a plan that at last gave Soderbergh what he wanted: total control over all aspects of the movie and the highest earning potential on the back end.
Feldman brought Logan Lucky to Bleecker Street, which was then a tiny film company barely 2 years old. The partnership made sense, though, and partly because this was a huge win for Bleecker Street. Not only did they acquire Soderbergh's comeback movie, I mean, that's an event in itself, right? But it was a movie that was already paid for. And not only that, but Soderbergh had a lot of money left over to foot the bill for marketing, though he would spend a lot less than Hollywood typically would. Instead of, putting up, vanity billboards all over LA, he had a more regionally targeted approach focusing on the Midwest and the South.
Yeah, and I want to point out that this was nothing new for Soderbergh. He and George Clooney, as we mentioned in a previous episode, started Section 8, their own production company, with the sole purpose of financing independent and smaller movies and finding them commercial distribution. Soderbergh has always been, if not at war, at least at odds with distribution and distributors. What makes this different is a simple fact that Soderbergh isn't doing it himself this time. He's found partners, and he's vocally exercising his demand for control. But importantly, and what makes what he's doing here so ahead of his time, is how the landscape around him is shifting and very much in flux. Think of it this way. By the time Logan Lucky's released, and this kind of shocked me because I think about when Logan Lucky was in theaters, and I still feel like this period that I'm going to mention is far ahead. But at the time of its release, House of Cards had already been on Netflix for 4 years, which I think is crazy. Do you align those things, Keir?
No, I do not.
House of Cards seems way more recent, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, but that was a show, and Netflix was producing their own series, and not just House of Cards. There was other series as well, and other streamers were following and doing the same. I mean, the one Red Oaks, the one that Soderbergh produced, was an Amazon Prime show.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, point being is that streaming is becoming a major player in the movie industry. And while some would have argued that streaming was a good thing, that it would democratize the industry, no one would argue that now. All streaming has done is fracture audiences and erode the theatrical model, which is absolutely essential, particularly since every streamer not owned by Jeff Bezos, if you look at it, is drowning in debt. None of these places are in the black. And not to mention, they also produce, more garbage, content that you could watch if you lived a dozen lifetimes, though. Why would you want to?
Sounds like purgatory or hell to me.
We're in the bad place, Keir. By the way, we're recording this, the day after election, so we're probably a lot going on. But anyway, movies like Logan Lucky can't exist in the way they once did, coming out in theaters, getting a healthy DVD release, then earning a little in cable sales. there's very little room for mid-budget movies in movie theaters, though that is shifting back a little. There's been some this year, some mid-budget hits. Currently right now, the movie Conclave, which I've heard a ton about, adult, right? I mean, you would say that feels like it's becoming a hit, right?
It looks like adult entertainment, but in the good way.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see it. I think I'll see that. It just seems like a, I don't know, adult thriller that didn't cost a ton to make, and I think it's doing okay. And
Yeah.
buzzy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, it's since streaming has killed home video, which I don't know if people notice or not. Home video was a incredibly lucrative arm of the movie business. Not always, not every home video release did well, but like overall, the home video, DVD from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, etc., used to make a ton of money. And that is, there's a lot of people who champion physical media. I am one of them. I love physical media. It's still around. Keir is as well. Like, it's not the industry, it's not the business that it used to be.
I'm always afraid they're going to stop releasing, DVDs basically. It's like, oh my God, then we're going to be totally at the mercy of the streamers, or we're all going to have these hard drives, with like bootleg copies that we've backed up to, hoard away for the end times.
Yeah, which is scary, because like we've talked about, you don't own that content. Even if you buy something on Amazon, like you buy a digital movie, you don't own it. Like if that goes away,
why would you ever buy it on a platform like that? I mean, I've done it, but only when that was the only option and I couldn't rent it. But that is not ownership.
No. And I fear like that we're going to end up in this like world of extremes, where it's like, it's either streaming or boutique releases. You see all these releases that come packaged with, lobby cards and a poster and a tape cassette for some reason. And it's like $120, for,
yes.
I'm like, I just want the conversation. I don't want, which is literally the Conversations release was $100. And it looked beautiful and looked great. And it's a 4K restoration. I'm sure the sound and quality video were all amazing, but like all the extras they threw in was like stuff that, and I've seen this chatter, on movie Reddits and stuff like that. We're like, I don't want this shit. Like, I just wanted the 4K of the Conversation for like $25, not $100, and a lobby card that I'm not going to do anything with. So hopefully we don't end up in that world where it's just like streaming and boutique physical release. That would suck.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So anyway, getting back to Logan Lucky, what Soderbergh did with that movie wasn't just about creative control. It was about finding a new path, or maybe even creating a new path, as all the other paths were, more or less, as kind of chronicled, were hitting dead ends.
Now, in an interview with IndieWire, Soderbergh said this, which I really love. And I feel like at most Soderbergh quotes I could add, which I really love, because he's so thoughtful. He's so honest, like just relentlessly honest, intellectually honest, but also just like, I don't know, it feels like he's never fronting. He said, quote, "Everything evolves, everything changes. That's the only constant. So the artist has to figure out how to navigate these changes. The emergence of the streaming platforms is easily the most disruptive thing that's happened to movies ever. There are two things in the movie and television business that don't exist on your streaming platform. Bonanzas, like a film that you put out that makes $1 billion at the box office, and a TV show you make that's a hit, and you do 150 episodes, and you syndicate it for the rest of time. In the streaming world, that cash cow doesn't exist. So even if you make Stranger Things, which by all accounts has been seen by more people than have ever seen anything, at a certain point, everybody who wants to see it will have seen it. And it's just a dead asset sitting there, taking up terabyte space on the platform. So I just don't know how, over time, this works. You're spending more and more money to chase fewer and fewer eyeballs." Yes, and that is so interesting because, of course, when streamers started throwing crazy money at people to make movies and to make limited series, everybody was excited. Everybody felt like it's the future because, of course, you feel like it's the future when people are throwing money at it and you suddenly feel like there's opportunity there. But few people had the kind of foresight to look ahead and say, well, wait a minute, what really happens? And of course, that is one of the biggest problems with streaming is that, even when HBO or somebody spends a bunch of money to let somebody like Soderbergh make a great film, like I thought Behind the Candelabra was a great film. What is the model there? Like if the whole thing is just that they're going to spend X amount of money to enhance the prestige of their platform and bring more people to it, but it has no more earning capability. And particularly now we live in an era where we know people drop streaming services all the time. And that was, again, something that a lot of these streamers didn't think of when people were investing big. They just thought, oh, well, we have these subscribers and we'll have them forever. But they weren't realizing that suddenly the market was going to be a complete glut, and people can't afford to pay, however much, 15 or 20 bucks for every single streamer and then have all of them. So what people do is they subscribe to one for a while, they watch the stuff they want to watch, then they unsubscribe. And so there's just the earning potential is extremely limited.
This is how you get into like this like dead zone of, of financial black holes, because this is the tech bro hell that has taken over entertainment, because that's what drove streamers, because like it's all about like what Netflix is worth and what the streamer is worth, and that's what like these tech industries, this tech Wall Street kind of hybrid industry wants to say is how much it's worth. So Netflix may be worth something, but they actually don't fucking make anything. like their value, like their subscribership will never catch up to what they pay to make the movies and TV shows. There will always be a delta there. There'll always be a delta. They'll never catch up. So they have to rely on investors, and they have to rely on like, well, our perceived value is this. But there used to be a time not long ago that streaming actually killed, called cable and home video and theatrical. That wasn't about what a company was worth. It was about what they actually made and profits and losses. And granted, they lied about all those profit losses to creatives like Soderbergh, but they were still at least financially solvent. None of these places are solvent. None of these places can, without like infusions of money from outside sources, can sustain, because exactly why you're saying, like, they spend too much. They got involved in this arms race basically to create the most content, which just kind of raise the bar and the threshold higher and higher and higher, and then create a model that, like, unlike cable, you subscribe and that's it, you're in. Like, maybe you go to another cable provider, but that was it. There was one other provider, maybe, sometimes no. Like, you can just easily jump off of Netflix and go to Hulu, and jump off of Hulu and go to Peacock, and etc. to your heart's content. There's nothing stopping you. Where this is not that. And I mean, finally, like, the only thing I say is like just the arms race. Because you remember a time as well as I do, like, of HBO. Like, HBO would have the show on, like their show. Right now, Sopranos is on. And then when Sopranos season ends, then 6 Feet Under is going to start. And when 6 Feet Under season ends, then Carnival is going to start. It'd be like one-ish show at a time, maybe a comedy, maybe two. And that was the must-see, must-watch water cooler thing. Same thing with Showtime. We'd have a show or two on at a time. It's the Wild West with streaming. Like, there's just so much stuff. You can't even watch it. It costs too much. It's just, it's a hamster on a wheel.
It's so crazy that, you look back to when people were saying, this is going to be so great, it's going to give people the choice and what they want. And basically they just ripped cable apart and made you pay, obviously you've always had to pay for premium channels on cable, but like now it's like you've got, different apps, different platforms for every single thing. And it's a freaking nightmare as a consumer of entertainment. Late stage capitalism, not good for the creative arts.
No. And I love these, like, now I've saw, like, it was on Twitter one day, and it was hilarious. This, like, some tech bro was like, imagine, a bundle where you put all these streamers together and you can subscribe all at once. It's like, cable. You discovered cable.
Congratulations.
Yes. It's like, it was similar. I remember some other tech bro would talk, like, what are those things called, that you can own the artwork, the digital artwork?
An NFT.
Like your own copy of a novel. Like, imagine it's your own exclusive digital copy. It's like, yeah, dude, a PDF. It's but it was just like, you end up right back where you started. The tail, the snake eating its own tail. You end up right back where you started. Anyway, so
I hate tech bros and I hate film bros, Mike.
that's why we are the film nice guys, Keir.
I love how we stumbled on that, but yes, we are.
I believe it's true. We are nice guys. We're nice film people too. And we're gonna take a quick break, and we're gonna nicely swerve out of Soderbergh territory, for a moment, inspired by Soderbergh. And we're going to talk about, since we're on the subject of Logan Lucky, we're going to talk and list our top 5 individual heist movies.
That's nice.
So, the restaurant is closing, effective immediately. But tomorrow, I'm still hosting my holiday poker game, and I'll need staff to work it.
You shouldn't do this to people. Not on Christmas. Have any of you noticed your paychecks being a little late? I saw something weird on Chip's computer. I'm pretty sure I'm like $14 short.
These irregularities, they don't happen by accident. What you need is someone who knows their way around such things. There's gonna be like $60K in that place tomorrow night.
They're gonna be playing poker for a few hours. That gives us plenty of time. Crack open the safe, get that money, and get out.
All right. Let the games begin.
Christmas is coming away.
I can explain.
I had nothing to do with this. Nothing.
Now, as we've covered Steven Soderbergh's filmography, we have also covered a number of heist movies and crime movies, because Soderbergh, like us, is a fan of the genre. I mean, you've got Out of Sight, Bubble, which is a crime film, really, the Ocean's movies, the Limey, even The Informant had a criminal element, and there's more to come this season.
Yeah, I mean, I love crime movies, Keir. I know you do as well. The Music Box Theater here in Chicago does a noir film fest every August, and man, it's just one of my favorite times of the year. I love it.
I love that too. And unfortunately, it always seems like I'm traveling or something, so I don't make it as often as I like. But I just drool over the lineup every year, and I go when I can.
Yeah, you can never get to enough. And just Robert Mueller rolls into town. It's a pretty special occasion when that happens. Now, since you and I share the same affinity for this type of movie, and since we're discussing Logan Lucky, I figured this would be a good opportunity to think about and, of course, rank, because it doesn't count unless you rank things, rank our favorite heist movies.
As I've said before, I find making lists of best or even favorite films, let alone ranking them, absolutely excruciating, but it is a useful exercise because it forces me to think about films I haven't seen in a long time and often rewatch them. I will just add the usual disclaimer that I'm not making some film bro claim that these are the definitive best. These are just great examples of the genre that I happen to enjoy, and the ranking makes sense to me on this day.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say, to your disclaimer, so we only had one rule, that we couldn't pick the same director twice, which gave us, more diversity, more things to think about, and forced us to make some tough choices. But I will say this, we don't know each other's choices. So if we both have the same number one, if we both came into it independently, Keir, that is the greatest heist movie of all time.
Yeah, I think there are going to be some surprises here, but this is always fun. I feel like when we've done these kind of blind lists, well, certainly with our Soderbergh top 5, we find that we have some differences of opinion, but we're also very much in sync in a larger sense. I think there'll be some surprises today, but I'm guessing there might be a little bit of overlap.
Interesting. I'm intrigued. Would you want to start? Do you want to give us your number 5?
I will start. Okay. Yeah. And so, like, even though these are kind of like, the movies I enjoy watching the most, I did try to do a little bit of a spread to kind of, for my own enjoyment and interest, to kind of cover a little bit the history of heist movies. But so I'm kind of all over the place here. But my number 5 is an early Stanley Kubrick film, The Killing, which is a 1956 film based on the book Clean Break by Lionel White and with dialogue by the great crime novelist Jim Thompson. This early and influential Kubrick film is marred by a clunky voiceover. I would love to see the Blade Runner director's cut treatment, but it's just otherwise top notch. It has Sterling Hayden as the mastermind of a plan to rob a racetrack. I wonder if Soderbergh watched this in preparation for Logan Lucky. and Elisha Cook as a cuckolded cashier who's the weak link in the gang. One of the film's innovations is its nonlinear time frame, its editing. And I wonder if Soderbergh watched this in preparation for the Limey, maybe. And it has a noir ending that rivals Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It's just a old movie that I still love.
Yeah, no, a terrific movie, great ending. Obviously it was a ending. I wonder if it, product of the code, because the bad guys had to get theirs. But yeah, no, I love it. It's funny, I was going to show it to my older son. He was doing a report. Oh, bless my son. He was doing a report. They had to do a report, and he's in the middle of it, of somebody who changed the world in a positive way, and he wanted to do Stanley Kubrick. And I was like,
the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Mike.
No. And I was like, listen, you can do a report that's like, yeah, his art changed the world, like his art alone. But I was like, it might make things difficult for yourself. So why don't instead you do someone who was an artist, but also had like a philanthropic arm to what they did as well. He landed on George Lucas. So I feel like it's a good, but the fact that he started like, I'm going to do Kubrick. And I was like, well, we got to watch a lot of Kubrick. He's seen some, but I was like, okay, we got to watch Killing. We got work to do. But
Paths of Glory. Yeah.
Paths of Glory, which I think he'll love. He loves a good war flick. So yeah, I think he'll be in for Killing, report or no report on good old Stanley Kubrick.
Good work, Dad.
Yes, I'm doing something right. If his 12-year-old comes home and says, I got to do a report on a person that's changed the world, and God damn it, I'm picking Stanley Kubrick. The other kids are doing like Marie Curie, and I'm doing Kubrick. So, all right, I'm going to dive in.
Number 5.
Story, yeah, number 5 for me. A movie that I've mentioned before in the podcast, The League of Gentlemen.
That was one I wanted. I still haven't seen it, and I've been wanting to rewatch it ever since you mentioned it. I'm delighted it appears on your top 5.
Yeah, it's just a fun, great heist flick. It's innovative. It's cool black and white noir. I love the cast. I love the way it's filmed. The story is really cool. There's some interesting set pieces. The heist itself is great tension, and it just just unfortunately little scene. You can get it on Criterion, but it's only part of a box set. It's often streaming on Criterion, but you can only get it on part of a box set. I forget what the box is called. But yeah, League of Gentlemen is just a gem of a heist movie that's just like just a pure straight up heist. League of Gentlemen is a great one. I love that movie so much.
Fantastic. Now I've got to see it. I'll actually, my son Cosmo will be coming home at Christmas from college, and I know he'll want to watch it. We'll stream it on Criterion.
There you go. All right, that's for number 5. 4, Keir, what do you got?
Okay, so I chose The Red Circle, or Le Cercle Rouge. I can't pronounce French. A 1970 film directed by Jean-Pierre Melville. I definitely wanted to honor the French contributions to this genre, and for me, it was really a toss-up between 2 films by Melville, either Bob the Gambler, Bob le Flambeur,
yes,
1956 film, which is fantastic, and The Red Circle. They're separated by 14 years, so the technical difference between them is great. And I ultimately went with The Red Circle, which stars Alain Delon as an ex-con master thief who has a chance encounter with a murderer. This amazing kind of meet cute, I guess you want to call it, and plans a jewelry heist with him. I saw it a few years ago on film at the Music Box and thought it was just visually stunning. The final half hour, which is almost wordless, is just amazing. And I think that the visuals really were what made me choose it over Bob the Gambler, but both terrific.
I've seen, I can tell you, and this was transformative, honestly, no joke, transformative of my life and film appetite. I've seen all those at the Music Box. I saw The Red Circle, I saw Bob the Gambler, and I saw a movie that almost made my list, and I should have. I'm glad you covered this French new wave crime period. I saw Les Delos. I am probably pronouncing it the same as you. I don't know. Les Delos is more just like a straight up noir, though. That was hesitant to put on my list.
Yeah.
But Melville, just Chef's kiss.
We were probably at the same screening for the Red Circle and didn't even know it.
We probably were. Yeah. I mean, God, this was a few years ago, but I would imagine.
I think it was like a one night only.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we had to have been. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Ships in the night.
The small filmographer world.
Well, I'm glad that you got the Melville on there.
I'm dying to hear your number 4.
So number 4 is probably maybe my most surprising pick, the most unconventional heist movie I think that I might appear on both of our lists, definitely mine. My number 4 is Christopher Nolan's Inception.
Interesting.
Right?
Very interesting.
It's weird that it appears on the list. It's not my favorite Nolan, and I like Nolan a hell of a lot. The reason I put it on there is if you're looking at heist movies, there is a sort of standard operating procedure of like what a heist movie is and how it functions and the twists and the inside guy and blah, 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 blah. There's all these kind of things. And like Inception is a heist movie that's so inventive and so cool and like takes that idea into like this just uncharted territory of heisting somebody's brain, their thoughts, and implanting something. Like it's so cool. I love that it exists. I love that Christopher Nolan exists and he's making these big budget spectacles that are original ideas, and it just give us a dozen more of him. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking about like heist movies I really enjoy and that I really felt like were important as well. And yeah, Inception, I couldn't shake it. I tried to push it off the list and I couldn't do it.
You tried. I think that's a terrific pick. No reason to push that off your list. It's funny. I do really love that movie. And I remember watching it with my sister-in-law and her husband. And they just hated it. They hated it. I couldn't believe the hate they had for that movie. Always good to have strong opinions about the art you like and don't like. But I was kind of shocked that they could hate it so much. I was like, and they kind of referred to it later as this ordeal that they had to endure. And I was like, oh, that was like the third time I had seen it, and I really loved
it. High Tenet from them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Tenet's a movie I don't love as much, but I appreciate it in some way.
All right, Keir, number 3.
Okay, so I think this is probably not going to make too many people's top 5 heist film lists, but a movie that I have loved ever since I've seen it. The Lookout, the 2000 film written and directed by Scott Frank in his directorial debut. Scott Frank, of course, is the guy who also scripted Get Shorty and Out of Sight, the second one for Soderbergh. This is a quiet, smaller movie that I just love. It's also got one of the most amazing openings of any film I have ever seen. And that's all I'll say about the opening. It's about a brain-damaged former hockey star who's the night janitor at a bank, and he falls in with a crowd who wants to take advantage of him. Speaking of Christopher Nolan, it's a little like Nolan's Memento, where it achieves a risky balance with a protagonist whose own thought process is unreliable. The heist is very small, and this is a neo-noir. It's not at all a fun caper. But to me, it succeeds completely, even though one or two of the supporting actor performances aren't the strongest. However, Jeff Daniels is excellent as the blind roommate of Gordon Levitt's character, and Isla Fisher is solid as a regretful love interest. It's just a really well-crafted, well-scripted film that more people should see.
Wow. Keir, that's an excellent pick. Bravo. Man, that's a really great pick. I love The Lookout. I'm jealous it's not on my list. I just overlooked it. And Scott Frank, a friend of the show, wrote Out of Sight.
Love Scott Frank. Yeah, talent. He's a real talent. This was his directorial debut, so he shows he can direct a movie too. I mean, I think he's probably not as good with the actors maybe as Soderbergh would have been, but it's just such a well-crafted film. I love it.
I love it too. I mean, well, two things. Well, I want to question, and one I want to point out something about that movie. He did Queen's Gambit too, right?
Yes.
Okay, I always confuse him with somebody else. Okay, yeah, which is also absolutely terrific. But you know what I love about that movie that I was just thinking about the other day? I was actually watching Hoosiers for the first time, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And you know what's awesome about The Lookout as well that takes place in winter. Like, you remember when movies had seasons that wasn't this daylight was the season?
Yeah.
like Hoosiers is fall and it goes to winter. You know, it actually chronicles the season as the season as the basketball season goes on. Lookout is a pure winter movie, and you feel the winterness in it, and it's such a great mood that it sets.
Winter in Kansas, nonetheless. Yeah, I love winter films. It's yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in winter, I'll be searching out winter films to just kind of really get into the winter mood or something. But yes, I agree. It makes perfect use of the season. The season could not be more appropriate to the tone of this film. And again, the tone in this film is really successful.
Yeah, great pick. And I'll tell you what, your number 5 was a great pick as well, because that's my number 3 is The Killing, which, we already discussed. Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece, one of his earlier masterpieces, obviously, just a movie that I love. It's a great heist flick. Obviously it's Kubrick. He shoots the hell out of it. It looks great. It plays great. Sterling Hayden's awesome. Great. A whole lot of great bit players who already populate that movie. And it's one of the best of the genre. What can you say?
Absolutely. It's one of the films too that you feel helps form the genre. Of course, many film noirs had come before it, but I think the heist film was still kind of a work in progress, or an evolving kind of subgenre, and that definitely is a touchstone.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see how that bleeds over into many other movies. Asphalt Jungle wouldn't exist, which is another great crime noir without the look that Kubrick really cemented in his blacks and his lights like that. No, while there was film noir, you're absolutely right, in black and white filming and all that kind of stuff. But like his use of light and shadow, like nobody was doing what Kubrick was doing, and then everybody was doing what Kubrick was doing.
That's right. His gift to the world.
Yes. Almost written about by a 12-year-old too.
Yeah.
So number 2, Keir, we're cooking.
Well, we are complimenting each other's picks. I chose for number 2, Inception, the 2010 film written and directed by Christopher Nolan.
You Inceptioned me by acting like you were so surprised.
I entered into your dreams, Mike.
No wonder I couldn't take it off my
stole your idea and moved it up a little bit in my list. I also wrestled with it, and I also kind of tried to talk myself out of putting it on my list before ultimately giving it the second spot. I don't know why I was trying to talk myself out of it. It's just a film that I really enjoy watching. I'm not 100% sure if this comes to mind when other people think of heist movies, but maybe it is, since we both clearly thought of it quickly when we were thinking of heist movies. Sometimes I like a smaller story, like The Lookout. Sometimes I like bigger ones. And Inception really layers on the complications. Some heist movies go big and deliver, and this one absolutely does. The story about corporate espionage and stealing from people in their dreams. It's visually stunning. It's relentlessly paced. I know some people say they can't follow it. I follow it just fine. It has a dream cast that needs no introduction. And also, I had no idea when I started compiling this list with, a list of like 30 films, that I would be choosing 2 films that have Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Wow.
He is an actor I like quite a bit.
Good job, JGL. Yeah. And I'm with you too. The only thing I'll add is that I'm relentlessly baffled by like the Inception explained. It's like Inception relentlessly explains itself. Like they spend so much time explaining. That's the only knock I have on the movie. And I get it, because Nolan was right. Even to me, and I'm sure to you, the endless explanations of what's happening and what's going to happen next, people are still like, what happened? And I'm like, but they just said it and then they did it. Like,
I agree. I just feel like it couldn't be more clear. You can some people take issue with the film's logic. Anytime you take a swing that big, there are going to be things that people are going to feel like, yeah, but could that really work or whatever? But I think the film succeeds within the world of its own creation. I think it's very consistent. There might be a couple of things you can nitpick, but I just don't have a problem with it.
No, neither do I. I thoroughly am good with everything, the way that movie plays out. Yeah, I love it. All right, my number two, and I won't go too much into this because we're gonna talk about it later. But number two is Logan Lucky. Like, I love this movie. Like, I just love it's so fun. It has a great heart. It has great characters. The angle it takes is so unique. Of like, the tagline, see how the other half steals. And it's just such a magical Soderbergh achievement that, like, I don't think any other director could have done this. I think any other director, and I may repeat myself when we talk about the film itself, would probably, the joke would be the characters. Like, the joke would be like, look at these dumbasses, look at these kind of people, and Soderbergh never does that. Like, Joe Bang's brothers kind of are like that. They're just kind of,
Yes.
they're goofy, but you find that in Casey Affleck and Scott Caan in Ocean's 11, 12, 13,
I thought of them exactly. It's true that in Logan, they're kind of the numbskulls, but given that they are the hillbilly analogs to these non-hillbilly characters in Ocean's 11, like, I think that's a perfect analogy. And it would be even worse if he was trying too hard to elevate these characters so none of them were goofy, because like, at all socioeconomic levels we have dumb shits.
Right. We sure do. Yeah, it's just, look, it's a movie that it just breezes through its runtime. I don't know how in this day and age, how do you make a new kind of heist? And heists are movies that we love. How do you make a new kind of heist movie? How do you make it cool and fun and unique? And he makes it all of those things with flying colors. It's just a movie that it's comfort food to me. I can turn it on at any moment. I can watch it anytime, and I just enjoy the hell out of it. I love the characters. I love the story, all of it. And I think it's just, I don't know, there's just something, one of those things, I feel like you capture something special and magical in film. And that Logan Lucky manages this. So that is my number two.
I had a feeling that movie was going to appear on your list. And of course, the question for both of us is like, which Soderbergh movie are you choosing? Because we can only choose one. Obviously, we're huge Soderbergh fans. This is a podcast about Soderbergh. He loves heist films, and he's made great ones. So a Soderbergh film is going to appear on each of our lists. And for me, my number one, I wrestled with this a little bit, because in the moment, I'm enjoying the heck out of Logan Lucky as we're watching it and we're talking about it. And I think it's just a terrific film. But I went with Soderbergh's Ocean's 11 for my number one pick. And I think it was almost because I was worried about recency bias with Logan. And I also just think that, and Logan it feels a little fresher, and it's probably a little bit under the radar. It hasn't been seen by as many people. It hasn't been around as long as Ocean's 11. But I just think that for me and for many people, like, Ocean's 11 is the definitive heist movie. It's become an indelible part of popular culture for a reason. It's fun as hell. It's slick. It's funny. It's so just impeccably put together. And Soderbergh makes directing it look so easy that it's kind of easy to forget how remarkable it is that he managed to make such a good film with so many stars, right? I mean, that's, in the past, when you think about like the heyday, like the 60s and the late 50s of these like big, it's a mad, mad world type films, where they would just pile in the stars thinking like, well, more stars, bigger box office. And most of those movies are just turkeys. They're just terrible.
Yeah.
And yet he managed to invert that. He has all-star stellar cast. It's perfectly cast. And he's made a movie that is like, it's so good and it's so ubiquitous that it's almost easy to take it for granted. And I just had to kind of go back to like I had to get in the Wayback Machine and think about how I first encountered that film and my earlier feelings about it, and just my admiration for it, and say, you know what, I think that's the top dog. I just, Logan's Lucky is, as I said, an absolute contender for me, but he couldn't have made Logan's Lucky if he hadn't made Ocean's 11.
And that's a fair point. Those are all really, really good points. It is the quintessential heist movie. There is no doubt about that. I did wrestle a little bit. I wrestled with that. I wrestled with Out of Sight too. Like, although my problem ultimately with Out of Sight is that the heist is such a minor part of it that I was apprehensive, and I've given that movie enough love over the course.
I just don't feel Out of Sight is ultimately a heist film in the way we think of a heist film.
Exactly. There is a heist, but it's not like, that's not what the movie is, where Ocean's 11, obviously it is, all about the heist. And yeah, close for me as well. What can you say that you didn't say? It is ubiquitous, and maybe we do kind of take that for granted. But it is the heist movie. If you're talking about heist movies, you bring up heists movies, and Ocean's 11 is going to be the number one movie that most people are going to say. There's no doubt.
The Kleenex of heist movies. It's the brand that stands in for the thing.
The Kleenex of heist movies.
That doesn't sound good, but
it's a tissue, Keir.
Not a tearjerker.
All right, so we'll wrap it up. My number one heist movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. The number one is the director I struggled with the most, despite this being a Soderbergh podcast, of like picking which heist movie. My number one heist movie is Michael Mann's Thief. To me, that is just, I don't know a movie that is cooler, that has a more fascinating philosophy. The James Caan dialogue at the diner. The woman doesn't say much, but about like, detachment and how you gotta survive. Laid out the entire Mann's entire career. Like that thread carries over into Heat. Be like, if you feel the heat around the corner, there's nothing you can't, I am butchering this, but like drop within 2 seconds flat, or that line, I'll drop at anything, and then obviously he doesn't, because Amy Brenneman's character. But anyway, James Caan, I was gonna say Scott Caan, dear God, James Caan delivers what, in a nutshell, so much of Michael Mann's fascinating, celebrated, amazing, historic Hall of Fame career. The style, the wet pavement, the neon, the meticulous detail, the male figure on an obsessive, destructive journey. Like, these things, I love them. I can watch this movie on mute and not listen to a word of it, and just absolutely still enjoy the hell out of it. I can watch it just with the Tangerine Dream soundtrack and enjoy it. I can watch it with any form, any shape or form. I can watch this movie and be utterly transfixed by how good it is. It's a Chicago movie, which is also very cool, which I love. Mann's a Chicago guy. I when I think of heist movies, to me, and I know I'm the oddball, because Ocean's 11 casts a shadow over everything. But if you say heist movies, my mind goes, oh, Thief immediately.
Well, that's an excellent pick. And I can't believe I managed to make a top 5 that didn't include Thief or Heat on it somehow. I mean, I was wrestling with those. I feel like, in a way, for me, they were both like fighting over number 6. I would have given it to Thief, I think, over Heat, although they're both terrific. And actually, Thief is kind of distressingly hard to get these days. I think you can't stream it without buying it outright. And it's really not super available, which is a shame, because it is such a classic, both a Chicago classic and a classic crime film, a classic heist movie. I applaud your pick. It's absolutely a worthy number one as well, alongside Ocean's 11. And hey, I picked Ocean's 11 so you didn't have to.
And I picked Thief so you didn't have to. So we filled each other's gaps. I mean, it's always hard. Top lists are hard. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised you didn't have a Man in there, or Black. You could have went with Black Hat, which is actually a movie Black Hat's pretty fucking good.
There's a lot of great films that didn't make this list, and honestly, you could do a freaking cool season of a podcast that was just heist movies only.
Totally.
It might be a little bit of a grind, but man, there's so many fun things to watch. And yeah, I was as Mike said earlier, election day was yesterday, and I spent the day hiding from the news cycle by screening old movies, and I watched some heist movies, and it was a great way to check out before the inevitable result.
Yeah, it was. I'm jealous that you did that. I think that was a great idea, and it's a good excuse to watch movies, and it's a good excuse, talking about these movies gets you thinking about movies. And if we missed anything that you think deserves to be included, you, the listener, you, the viewer, put it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, put it in the comments section. If you are listening, send us an email, and we'll say, Jimmy from Pontiac, Michigan says we're both missed Rafifi, and we did. So let us know. We're happy to hear it. We have as much movies as we watch, and we watch a lot. We have blind spots too.
Yeah, absolutely. And just it's always fun hearing what the context behind other people's enjoyment of films too. Just as I love listening to Mike's discussions of the reasons for his picks today. Share your picks, but give us the reasons for them. Tell us, how you connect with those movies or what you like about them. We are genuinely interested, and we would like to hear them.
2-year bid, parole in 6 months, and right away, I got into this problem with these two guys. They tried to turn me out. So I picked up 9 more on manslaughter beef, some other things. I was 20 when I went in, 31 when I come out. You don't count months and years. You don't do time that way.
What do you mean? Why?
Why? You gotta forget time. You gotta not give a fuck if you live or die. You gotta get to where nothing means nothing.
Getting back to Logan Lucky, there's a simple question we've yet to answer, though. I mean, I kind of already did the top 5 segment, but Keir, did you like Logan Lucky? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I absolutely did. It's funny because my first viewing of it, whenever it was, I actually didn't see it in theaters, so I don't remember when I first saw it. But my first viewing experience was kind of similar to my experience of watching The Big Lebowski for the first time. I liked it, didn't love it. However, subsequent viewings have gone similarly with both of those movies. Like with each viewing, I like it more. Like I'm now a bona fide fan of The Big Lebowski, prone to quoting it at random and with an irritating frequency. And I'm a bigger and bigger fan of Logan Lucky too. I think part of what initially put me off was almost like intellectual. It was this idea of a bunch of Hollywood people playing Hicks. Channing Tatum did grow up in the South, but with Adam Driver growing up in Indiana, Riley Keough growing up mostly in LA and Hawaii, and Daniel Craig auditioning his accent for Knives Out, it's pretty easy to get distracted by listening to the variations in their accents. Bringing in Hollywood stars to play yokels is pretty much the opposite of what Soderbergh did with Bubble when he cast locals from West Virginia and Ohio as more or less themselves. But overanalyzing this stuff is missing the point. This is entertainment, not a sociological document, and it is damn funny. In some ways, this movie is broad, yes, but what I actually love about it is the numerous subtle touches. Tatum really goes undercover as an everyman here, making himself look as dowdy as possible, though he retains his easygoing charisma, especially in scenes with the girl playing his daughter. I like Adam Driver, but I'm not the biggest Adam Driver fan. However, his deadpan take on the guy with who's obsessed with the family curse gets just funnier and funnier with each viewing. Like what he does with his face and his body language is just great. And is the scripted insistence that he's not missing an arm, he's missing a hand. Genius. And Keough and Craig and the rest of the cast are, extremely well cast. In a very minor role, David Denman as Moody, the new man in Jimmy's ex-wife's life. He's like a pair of golf shorts brought to life. He's a human pair of golf shorts. He's just perfect. And he's an example of just like how well cast this ensemble is.
Yeah.
Can I digress for a moment though to talk about how many Hollywood legacies are in this movie?
Yeah, because I'm interested. How many are in this movie?
Okay, so we've got this is more of a music industry legacy, but we've got Riley Keough, who is the daughter of Lisa Marie Presley.
What?
But she's Hollywood royalty.
I did not know that.
Showbiz royalty, I should say.
Wait, who's the dad?
Some guy I don't know whose last name is Keogh.
Huh.
I think
Wow,
not a famous dude, although I guess I could quickly Google it. Let's see.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, I did not know. And
Danny Keogh.
Danny Keogh. No. Wow. That's Lisa Marie Presley's daughter.
He's a musician.
I never knew that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Although he's actually acted. He's born in Chicago. He's an actor also known for The Lodge, Cabin by the Lake, and The Darkling.
Oh, Riley Keough was in The Lodge.
This says that's funny. Well, maybe she got him the role because it says in his IMDb that he was in it.
Weird. Huh.
Okay, but
sorry,
but it gets better because we've got Jack Quaid, who is, I mean, definite son of Hollywood royalty, Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine Waterston, who plays the woman who running the mobile clinic. I just looked her up because I was like, God, she looks familiar. She looks so familiar. She's very distinctive looking. Well, it turns out she's the daughter of Sam Waterston.
Yeah, they look similar.
And Brian Gleason, son of Brendan Gleason. Am I forgetting anyone? And of course, Soderbergh has worked with Scott Kahn before. I mean, there's definitely, these people show up, and I don't bring this up to, call them all Nepo babies or anything like that, because they are working actors and it makes sense to me that they would work in the family business. But, sure is easier to get your foot in the door if your parents are showbiz people.
True. Yes.
Anyway, end of digression. These characters are quirky and they're not always the brightest, but they are endearing, and generally they're not fodder for mockery. The ones who are mocked the most heavily are Sebastian Stan as a full of himself race car driver, very funny role, talking about his software, by which he means food.
His OS.
Seth MacFarlane as a sports drink impresario, and to some extent Dwight Yoakam as a warden who refuses to admit his inmates are rioting. And the whole thing is firmly anchored by Jimmy's sincere love for his daughter Sadie. There's a little bit of a tear in your eye, moment towards the end that works. As to the heist, which is the reason we're calling it a heist movie and the reason it appeared at number 2 on your list, well, it's a great one. Yes, it would have fallen apart if various dupes didn't act as they were predicted to, or if the timing was off by a minute due to real-world hiccups. But it's cleverly conceived and it's really fun to watch it come together. My only cavil with the movie really is the ending, because ironically, like the original Ocean's 11, the one with Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, it ends with an investigation of the heist. In this case, as Hilary Swank's FBI agent tries to put it all together. It's not nearly as much of a momentum killer as the original Oceans, but I didn't love it. It just feels a little like the air is slowly coming out of the balloon, and I don't know why we need to meet this new character so late in the proceedings. But like I said, it's a quibble. All in all, Logan's Lucky gets a big thumbs up from me.
Well, I can tell you, I have an interesting fact I can share with you. There was originally a Logan Lucky sequel planned.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So I think that's where Hilary Swank comes in, and then I think you're gonna get more like, are they cursed? Is this inevitably? Is this their doom inevitable?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, but as a standalone, yeah, I definitely see your point.
Ocean 711 2.
Ocean 711 2. Oh God, and just please God, let me write the sequel. Just give me. I'll just fan fiction it, whatever. So, I don't need to say a lot. Obviously, I love this movie. There's this whole they don't make them like they used to thing for me. Logan Lucky is at its heart, screwball comedy, and I love screwball comedies about a bunch of, good old boys who try to pull off an impossible heist. And any other filmmaker, like I said, would have played off the Logan family and Joe Bang. Love, oh God. Joe Bang. Him and his family, his brothers, they would play it off for laughs. But in Soderbergh's hands, it's different. It's not 2 hours of ain't these hillbillies dumb? That's not what the movie is. And I think somebody else would have definitely gone into that territory and it would have sucked. The movie would have suffered for it. Soderbergh and the movie likes the characters. And that's always the case with Soderbergh. I've said this many times. He doesn't treat lower class people like animals in a zoo. He doesn't treat any of his characters that way. He respects, the Aaron Brockoviches and the factory workers in Bubble, and he respects the Logan family and the Bang family. I just love saying the Bang family. But it's true. I mean, he handles them with, dignity. He doesn't, put them up to saint status. They're not perfect, but he does he makes them real and full. And doesn't laugh at them.
They do bob for pieces of like ham hocks or something. Pig trotters.
Yeah, they do ring around like the toilet cover,
Yeah. Toilet cover, horseshoe.
Yes.
Yeah. But you make an excellent point, which is just that like you can have fun with people and you can poke fun at them, but you have to like them.
Yes.
As a creator, you have to like your characters or find something likable about them or redeeming about them. Unless they're just going to be an out and out villain.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally
agree.
And
even if it's a villain, your villain will be better if you find that shred of humanity.
Yeah, I think that's always the key. I think that's, the thing about a good villain is that anybody can look at them and say, boy, is that person evil, but I get it. And I think you need that with the Logan family. Like, yeah, they're pulling off this heist, but man, this guy's gotten, screwed over by, the big corporation, screwed over by the insurance and pre-existing conditions, and he got injured and clearly had no path forward. And this guy went to war, as most of our soldiers are from a lower economic status, and lost his hand. You're like, yeah, they're pulling off this heist and robbing something, and that's not right. You need a moral justification, as the Bang brothers would say. you're like, no, I get it. I totally get it. And I love that, and look, it's not the only reason I love this movie. It's not. I love it because it's fun and the performances are great and it has such a warm heart. Like you said, Tatum and his daughter are just such a great core, emotional core for this movie. It's not too much. It's not too little. It's just this exact amount that you need to give you that warmth. And yeah, the plot, the actual, heist, I think is fantastic. Like, it's unique and it straddles that perfect line of, it's complicated enough and there's enough trouble on the way that like it keeps you wondering, how it's all going to work, but it's never too complicated that you can't follow along. You get it the whole time. And I don't know, like I said, the performances, like I think we need to take a moment to recognize this is maybe, and look, I love Daniel Craig. I think he's a terrific performer. Maybe this is the best performance of his career, is Joe Bang.
It's certainly his better Southerner than the one he plays in Knives Out, although I do really enjoy that movie.
I agree.
The scene where they meet him, when we first meet him in the visiting room at prison, and he asks them to go buy some hard-boiled eggs from the vending machine. Well, chef's kiss.
You guys got a quarter? And the fake salt.
Yeah, fake salt.
And then my favorite line, which is,
I am incarcerated.
Yeah, we got a plan to get you out.
Also, in addition to Craig's wonderful performance and everybody's wonderful performances, I don't want to make a big deal out of this because we've said it so much, but we're again going into that Soderbergh underdog territory, which is something, like I said before, resounds so deeply with me and I really love. It's someone fighting the system, and the system is very apparent in the movie. Like, I don't think it's an accident. There's the company firing Tatum's character over the insurance BS, which I already mentioned. I don't think it's an accident that there's, the corporate sponsors all over NASCAR, and McFarlane's character, who is obviously, he's a representative of this commercial endorsement, which all of it just leads to control, the way advertising controls you and the way the sports drink controls Sebastian Stan. And like, it's pretty apparent, like the culture they're tapping into, the subtle but not so subtle ways in which, we are influenced and controlled. And then you have Channing Tatum, who just doesn't have a cell phone. Who's detached from all that. And it's pretty cool the way that they're, it's not a huge deal in it, but they're just like giving these, opposing kind of lifestyles. And I don't know, I think it's pretty cool, but all of it's there. And then you have the Logans. Like I said, they're poor, they have nothing, and they're going to take down the house. And I don't know. That's it. Well, I do have something else. Can I add one other thing?
Well, we own this podcast, so I think you're good.
Well, like I use this time to talk about chemtrails. Finally, Keir.
Today of all days, no, I'd rather you did not.
Okay, fine. Instead, I'm going to talk about Soderbergh's directing, like, which feels lively. Like, it's always solid, but something about Logan Lucky feels like rejuvenated. And I love to get your take, but like, I don't know, the camera feels like it's moving a lot. Like, maybe that's because the story, demands pace and it demands movement, but I don't know. It feels like there's something about Soderbergh, who, as we know, not only is directing, but he's literally behind the camera operating it. It feels like feisty upon his, return. You have to keep putting that in quotes. But as I was watching this, I watched it a few times in the last, week to go over it. Like, every time I watched it, it became more and more apparent that, like, wow, he's doing a lot with the camera, and it's pretty energetic, and it's pretty cool, and it's just always interesting, and it's a little bit different than we've seen from him, especially in recent movies. Like we said, Contagion, the movie was the camera was very static, and side effects a little bit too. I mean, did you pick up any of that as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had the same thought, and yeah, I think in the same way that Schizopolis kind of re-energized him, this quote unquote retirement, this break, seemed to energize him as well, and he kind of comes back, with piss and vinegar or something. There's one shot in particular that comes to mind, and I was going to call it like the gas station scene, but if you search for it on YouTube, you'll find there are multiple gas station scenes in this movie, which is only appropriate for a car-centered movie.
True.
But it's the scene where the prison laundry truck pulls in for gas. Clyde and Joe Bang roll out from under it, and then they get in the Mustang that Melly has borrowed from Moody. It's all one shot, perfectly executed, with the camera rising on a crane as the Mustang peels out. It's one of those things where you kind of do a double take and you're like, oh wait, I think that was one shot. And it just reminds me of something Soderbergh said, and that I quoted him on a few episodes ago. And I looked for the quote actually before this episode, and I couldn't put my hands on it right away. But basically he was just saying, like, don't take the easy way out. Work harder, do something cool with the camera, show your audience something. And I think he absolutely is back to his best at doing that in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's some pretty interesting stuff going on. And as you described that shot, I was like picturing it in my head. I'm like, oh yeah. There's just moments of flourish, I guess you can say. And it's good to see him inject those flourishes again, where maybe he wasn't before. Maybe he had his reasons, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, well, I'm glad we picked up the same thing, and I just wanted to check to make sure I wasn't alone there. That said, you loved Logan Lucky. I obviously love Logan Lucky. Did audiences love Logan Lucky?
Well, this was an experiment, right? We talked about the release strategy. Could Soderbergh eschew Hollywood marketing strategies and go after a different audience and do it with less money spent in marketing? And so at the time of the movie's release, Soderbergh said the movie needed a modest $15 million opening to be considered a win, which you'd think would be absolutely achievable for a movie this good. But unfortunately, it fell short of that, far short of that. It opened over the August 18th weekend to only 7.6 million. Held on pretty well in the coming weeks. And in fact, it even made more on its third weekend than its second, with a 4% increase. But while that increase occurred over Labor Day weekend, that actually was a historically low holiday weekend, with the entire box office hitting a low that hadn't been seen in like over 20 years. So all in all, Logan Lucky earned 28 million domestically, 20 million internationally, for a worldwide haul of 48 million, which is just so hard to get my head around. It feels like, if not a surefire hit, at least a solid hit, a solid double or triple in a movie that some people might even see twice while it was still in theaters, because they just say it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm baffled by it as well. And although, like you, I didn't see it in the theater. I don't know why exactly. But it definitely a surprising sort of miss, but I don't know. The thing is, like a few other Soderbergh movies, like Che, for example, it's hard to know if Logan Lucky was a total success or was a failure or not, because the movie, like we said, the movie was already paid for with money brought in with foreign pre-sales, and because Soderbergh funded the marketing with money he made from selling the streaming rights to Amazon. It feels like the movie was already in the black before it was even released.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I could be wrong because I'm not privy to the details of these deals that Soderbergh made. But I do wonder if the actual box office draw was icing on a cake that had already been made. I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite possible. And again, we're not privy to the deals of like how much money the actors would have taken down and how much was back end. I mean, clearly the low budget meant that a lot of them were willing to take profit participation and count on it being a hit. But yeah, it's so hard to say. But I can't help but wonder. We spent all this time talking about his desire to break out of the traditional Hollywood release strategy. I can't help but wondering whether it would have had more success had it been released through the traditional system and marketed that way. Again, we just don't know, but I think it could have made a hell of a lot more. I really do. The movie did open against The Hitman's Bodyguard, though, the Sam Jackson, Ryan Reynolds vehicle. So,
yeah, that movie, I think that won a couple Oscars. Or am I thinking of the other Ryan Reynolds movie?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check my notes on that one, but it was clearly some serious competition.
Must be the other Ryan Reynolds movies that won those
all the other Oscar winners. Yeah. What we do know is that The Hitman's Bodyguard was distributed by Lionsgate, which is a mainstream studio, and it had a healthy marketing campaign behind it. So, it may have appealed to a similar audience to Logan Lucky. And so maybe they shouldn't have been pitted against each other at the same time on the calendar, but they were, and the numbers don't lie. We love one of them a lot more than we love the other, but Bodyguard opened to 21 million, which is 3 times more than Logan Lucky.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but wonder, would, say, a Warner Brothers, would they have opened Logan Lucky against such a similar movie? Would they have marketed it better? Would that result in the movie performing better? They're all valid questions, but I doubt Soderbergh, even knowing what he knows now, would have probably traded what he gained creatively, create the creative and professional autonomy to see those questions answered.
I agree. He is not motivated by money other than the money he needs to make his films, and he doesn't seem to be ruled by regret. He seems to be willing to take the lessons he's learned and move forward. And he got to make the movie, and that's what he loves doing most. Now, while we tend to believe box office is king, and we live in a world where the first 72 hours of movies box office life is king, it doesn't always tell the whole story. So Logan Lucky was, and it's so funny, I always want to call it Logan's Lucky because of Ocean's 11.
Logan's Run.
Yeah, that too. Anyway, Logan Lucky was very well received by critics, and not just the filmographers. We won't go into as much details as we sometimes do as far as the reviews, but a few excerpts. It was universally praised at the time of release. Jason Bailey of Flavor Wire said, "It would be a fabulously funny and endlessly entertaining summer treat no matter who was making it, though it's hard to imagine anyone making it as well as Soderbergh." Adam Graham of the Detroit News called it a slick, smarter than your average bear heist comedy that moves and grooves with all the hallmarks of a Soderbergh caper. He's back, baby. And Peter Travers of Rolling Stone said, "Soderbergh's return to features is a redneck riff on his Ocean's 11, a cool breeze of summertime sweetness that restores the good name of movie escapism. Daniel Craig is off the chain. Hilarious." I do wish we would have maybe dug into some local reviews from maybe some Appalachian based newspapers just to see what they thought of their portrayal. But in general, all the bigger outlets all loved it.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting question. Yeah. I hadn't considered that. I wonder how it did fare. I don't know. Given that the universal praise probably will. But yeah, I mean, they're all saying things I think that we're seeing and agreeing and all enjoying. And what's comforting, what's the good news in all that is that the love for Logan Lucky, it's only grown in recent years. Like looking at DVD sales on Amazon for comparison, look, you got to take this with a grain of salt, but Soderbergh's previous theatrical release, Side Effects, which has like 5 to 6 years on Logan Lucky, so more time to have grown and gotten more reviews, etc. That has 2,000 customer ratings. Side Effects has 2,000 customer ratings, and it's an older movie, but it's his most recent theatrical release to Logan Lucky. Logan Lucky, in a shorter amount of time, has more than double that at 4,500 ratings. So that's good. I feel like that's a nice thing. The movie has been a consistent draw on streaming. It entered Netflix top 10 as soon as that debuted on the service back in this August. So this is a, 7-year-old movie, 2017, right, Keir? Am I getting that right? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 7-year-old movie, made its debut at Netflix and went straight to the top 10. So that means, for those keeping track at home, that Soderbergh, by the way, this Netflix piece, Soderbergh sold Logan Lucky's streaming rights at least twice now, because he originally sold it to Amazon, now he sold it to Netflix. So that's just, more money in the bank.
Yesterday, as you were leaving the bar, you said the word cauliflower.
That's right. I didn't.
The last time you said that word to me, I ended up getting sent down for 6 months.
It was juvie.
I was 13.
And you were supposed to be the lookout, now weren't you?
Being that I was your kid brother, I let you lead me into trouble with all your crazy cauliflower plans. My life of crime is over. But you did make breakfast this morning. Even burned the bacon like I like it and you ate. I also saw you have some sort of robbery to-do list.
Before we wrap up today, I just want to offer my heartfelt thanks for your support of the Filmographers podcast. Whether you gave us a 5-star rating, a thoughtful review, or just commented to share some of your favorite heist films, thank you. We appreciate it. And if you didn't do any of those things, do them now so you don't have to feel guilty about being thanked for something you didn't do.
Yes, and if you do, we will read your reviews and comments on the next episode that we record. So in a way, you will be a guest on our show. That's not bad.
Your words will become immortal. It's the most minor form of immortality, but it's immortality nonetheless. The latest to join this pantheon is Dreeny Beanie, the username of this person who gave us this wonderful review on Apple Podcasts. The 5-star review is headlined "A Ball of Fun." Dreeny Beanie writes, "This podcast contains a great mix of jokes and film facts that is very entertaining. As someone who enjoys watching movies, the behind-the-scene facts are particularly intriguing. The Contagion episode is my fave so far."
Oh, well, that's very nice. Thank you, Dreeny Beanie. We really appreciate it. And that, like I said, it helps us find more listeners, and that's really cool. And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and keep listening. And hopefully we'll make an episode that you like even better than the Contagion episode. Although I agree that I like that one a lot too.
I do too. So listeners, that's it for this week. As always, you can find us on X at Filmographer Pod, Instagram at the Filmographers, and we're even on the TikTok now. And I have to say, I'm over 40, so I have to put a "the" before I say the
TikTok.
Yeah, it's law. I can't. If I try to say just, the TikTok, it doesn't work. So we're there. We're on TikTok, and we're making some fun videos, and we're gonna have some more. We're having fun with it. And if you're not in any of those, you're not comfortable with that, you can always send us an old-fashioned email at thefilmographerspodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks, as always, to Kevin Lau, our inestimable producer, Gompson, who composed and played our theme music, and Cosmo Graff, who designed our logo. Join us next week on the Filmographers podcast when we discuss Soderbergh's next adventure in filmmaking. With Logan Lucky, he said, "To hell with it," with studios. And now he's saying the same thing with cameras.
Okay, back to the daguerreotype.